As a quick note, Natasha will be taking questions at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to use that chat function, and we are going to get this show on the road. Good afternoon, LIBOR members, and welcome to Down Payment Resources for the Entry-Level Buyer with Natasha Williams. For more events like this one and to see our plethora of amazing member-centric events, please visit lirealtor.com/events. Without further ado, as I said, we are in for a real treat today as we are so excited to host our very own Natasha Williams. A little bit about Natasha. Natasha Williams, a seasoned youth educator, business strategist, and real estate broker, brings over 15 years of finance experience shaping groundbreaking marketing strategies for Fortune 100 companies and coaching nationwide sales teams. Her passion for empowering young adults through financial literacy and real estate led her to found a company dedicated to their financial well-being, making her a sought-after speaker for educational institutions and nonprofits advocating for home ownership and financial literacy. As the broker owner of Cornelius Group, Natasha has been a steadfast advocate for accessible home ownership through education with housing nonprofit organizations for over a decade. Her commitment is further reflected in her service as an NAR director and participation in various committees for NAR, NYSAR, and LIBOR. Currently, Natasha serves on 3 committees with LIBOR. We're so happy about that. Natasha wholeheartedly leads Impactful Lives, a community-based initiative addressing profound inequities faced by unhoused young mothers. Through mentorship, career guidance, and essential provisions, Natasha is dedicated to empowering these individuals, fostering their transformation into thriving contributors into society. And might I add, she was too humble to list, she was our 2023 Spirit Award recipient. So without further ado, please welcome Natasha Williams.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I got to tell you, you are talking to Natasha, middle name, Affordable Housing Williams. Okay. So good afternoon to everybody here. I just want to stop and just say, this is a very good time for me to have a heart-to-heart with you, fellow realtor community. This is called the entry level. Let me take my glasses off and let me talk to you. This is called the entry level buyer. But you know, the entry level buyer could be called the forgotten buyer. It can be called the ghost buyer. Why? You know, you've spoken to that individual, you met them, and in meeting them, you talked about your profession. And they said, you know what, I'm interested in buying a home. You're like, awesome. Then you do a little deep dive with them offline. Later, you call them. Maybe they come by your office and you start talking to them. And then you learned they're thinking about doing a rent-to-own program. Now, there's nothing wrong with our rent-to-own programs, but we also do know that in Metro New York, they're not so prevalent, right? They don't exist as much. Yes and yes. So you're like, oh, you're not ready right now. Or they might say, hey, I want to buy a home, but they have zero saved for down payment, zero saved for closing costs. Maybe their credit might be a little tarnished. So you said they're not ready right now. Well, what do you do with them? Hey, maybe we put them in our drip campaign and we talk to them maybe once a year. But fellow realtor members, we, and as everyone is coming in, good afternoon, can give them hope. We, as realtors, we build communities. We help families increase their net worth. We help individuals become citizens of their area, and we encourage them to be the best that they can be. We do a lot as realtor members. And also, we will give them hope. How? How are we giving them hope? If you could free one financial concern for your clients, what would that be? Listen, according to the NAR said, dated back in 2022, 26% of buyers are first-time home buyers. Now, we know that there's such thing as shadow inventory. So we know that there's some listings that hasn't hit the market yet, but we know that there's shadow inventory exists. There's shadow buyers. There's That's why I call them sometimes a forgotten buyer. There's shadow buyers. There's those potential buyers, those renters that are looking to purchase, but they're in the shadows. We don't know them yet because they don't qualify yet. However, if we're able to provide this one resource, down payment resource, we can change that trajectory. Is that good or good? It's great. I think it's great. So, okay, let's talk. What do we do as realtor members? We can expand our own buyer pool. Let's go back and breathe some life into our CRM, into our database, and look for those buyers maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago that we haven't spoken to, that we need to touch base with, and we can talk to them with this new information. This would be the conversation we would go to them with. Hey, did you buy a home yet? Are you still in the market? You know what? Wherever you are, I want to tell you about down payment resources. What are we doing for our community? What are we doing for people? We are increasing affordability. Therefore, we're lowering the initial cost barrier. And this is why I wanted to have a heart-to-heart before I jump on the slides. We are making changes. We are helping people. We are changing communities just by learning about DPR. So I appreciate and thank you for being here today. I thank you for having the mind consciousness and the heart consciousness to want to help families grow, okay? Which means they're increasing their net worth. Quick icebreaker question, because I see we have people active in the chat. Let's talk about the ultimate property upgrade. Now, if you stumbled upon a hidden treasure trove, this hidden treasure trove, you're able to give your buyer some type of grant that could elevate their property. What part of their home would you look to elevate? Me personally, I love a good kitchen. So if I had a great kitchen, or maybe even, as the YPNers might be on, souped up bathroom, that's what the gift of gift I would give. The gift of gift I would give to one of my clients. Thank you, Sheila, for talking about you would give them the gift of updating the living room, right? So just blow up the chat. Tell me, if you can give the ultimate property upgrade to your client as a gift, what would that be? I told you, first vote for me is kitchen, second would be the bathroom. So as you're doing that, blowing up the chat, I'm going to go straight into our slides, okay? And how many of you like our little heart-to-heart conversation we had about DPRs? These are the shadow buyers, the renters that we have out there that are able to purchase, just don't know it yet. We will not allow not having all of the funds. They should have some, but not having all of the funds be a barrier to them experiencing the American dream of homeownership and increasing their net worth, which will then affect generations to come in their family. Now, who will they love over and over and over again because you told them about a resource that they did not know about? You, their realtor. Okay, so let's get into these slides. And trust me, you can hold all applause till later. It's okay. I do take applauses. We don't have to get the applauses right now. But let's talk about it. Myth versus truth. Some of you might have heard about down payment resources, and that's why you're here today. Maybe some of you have not heard and I would like to learn more. But let's talk about some myths, and let's bust those myths today. Down payment equal low income buyers. Now, there's nothing wrong with our LMIs, low income buyers. Nothing wrong with them. But they're not only, down payment is not only for low income buyers. It's also for our middle income class. And I'll go further and explain. Down payment is so limited. Limited to what? You have to know that there's various programs at a national level, a state level, a citywide level, private institutions. You just need to become more aware of what they are and to see how they can apply to your client base. Or here's a myth, down payments, hard to qualify for. Again, you just need to understand the eligibility criteria. And yes, there are some eligibility criteria. Yes, they have to check some items off the list. Yes and yes. However, it doesn't mean that all of them are difficult. Some they can qualify for, and some they might not be eligible for, and that's okay. But it does not mean that all of a sudden there's this umbrella where now they're hard to qualify for. You need to understand what the criteria is and how to apply it. So let's just think differently on that topic, okay? Now, let's go through our round of Jeopardy. Did you know? Did you know that our one key, our MLS, by the way, it has so many benefits. One Key MLS, have you noticed 74% of all One Key MLS listings are eligible for at least one type of down payment assistance program? You don't believe me? Okay, I'll show you. I will show you what I mean. If I didn't say before, I hope you have your pens and your pads ready because we're about to teach, okay? And I said we're about to teach. Okay, where are we now? In One Key MLS. And I typed in this property. I just went into a residential. I just went into our typical search in Adelaide Park, the 11th Historic District in Southeast Queens. And a little shout out to Queens. And I saw this. Look at this property in Adelaide Park. What do you see on the top? It says links, neighborhood info, school profile. What? Find down payment help. It is just that easy. If you're working with the buyer, you have saved the day by showing them down payment help. And yes, I'm doing this live. Once you select that button, oh my goodness, on this property, what does it say? This property may be eligible for 17 programs and up to $182,250 in down payment help. Did you see it or did you see it with your own two eyes? Am I talking to you or am I teaching to you? Am I talking to you or am I showing you? Listen, it's doable. It can be done. We just got to learn the resources. That's why I'm happy you're here today. So let's just stop share. We're going to go back, but I want to make sure that you're aware of a lot of the benefits that we have within One Key. Okay. Second, there's the Down Payment Toward Equity Act. So this was brought up in 2021, and now it's the Down Payment Toward Equity Act of 2023 because it went through some reiterations. It has not been passed yet. I hope that it does. Why? Because this bill allows for $25,000 down payment assistance nationally. $25,000. I really do hope that this gets approved. And this is why we need realtor members to be active within our community, active with local politicians to tell them what's important within the real estate industry and how we can build our communities. Okay, did you know I'm going to talk about down payment resources with nonprofit housing agencies. But let me just quickly talk about, because if I was really going to talk about down payment resources to great length and detail, we would be here for about 3 hours. You would be getting your popcorn, you would be getting dessert, and you might even get a little bit of lunch too, because we would be here for the long haul. But you got me for an hour, and we are talking about down payment resources through nonprofit housing agencies. But while I got you, while you're here, we're going to talk about buyer assistance programs. Do you know that, yes, NYSAR has the Housing Opportunities Foundation, and there's a grant involved in that? So, you know, we are members of LIBOR for those who are LIBOR. And then we're also, everyone falls under New York State Association of Realtors, right? You knew that. Great. And within NYSAR, you can Google them. They have the Housing Opportunities Foundation, and there's a grant that you can apply for with your buyer. Check it out. Second, there's a National Home Buyers Fund, NHF. It's a national or a nationwide program providing grants or 3-year forgivable loans, usually up to 5% of the entire mortgage loan amount. Okay, then you have the good neighbor next door. The good neighbor next door, or what I like to tell my little one, our community helpers. This is our police officers, our law enforcement officers, our firefighters, our teachers from pre-K to 12th grade, good neighbor next door. Now, this type of business assistance buyer assistance program, excuse me, is for HUD homes. Wait. Don't throw the daggers at me. Wait. Some of you might be saying HUD homes, but there's not a lot of HUD homes where I am. And that might be true. However, HUD homes still do exist. And this is information you can share. We teach one. We teach one another. Now, this program, Good Neighbor Next Door, is dedicated to HUD homes. But if there are HUD homes in your area, it's 50, they get a discount of 50% off the list price. 50% off the list price. Just to let you know, HUD homes, these are foreclosed homes that previously had a FHA loan, okay? So it's something, if you didn't know, now you know. Then there's the Fannie Mae Community Seconds and the Freddie Mac Affordable Seconds. Very similar, wherein these twos are not, these two items, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they're not a grant. Okay, so let's just start with there. It's not a grant, but it is a great mortgage that covers the entire cost of the home. Now, I bust one of the myths already. This is only for low income, because think about it for a minute. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac saying not a grant, but it's a great mortgage that covers the entire cost, the purchase of the home, the down payment, the closing costs. That means that person has to have at least be a middle income earner, right? To be able to afford that mortgage payment that has both the down payment and the closing costs enclosed. Yes or yes, or great, or wonderful. You're welcome. Now, the Fannie Mae and the Freddie Mac might sound similar to what's called NACA. There's another program called NACA, and NACA does similar. It has similar attributes, but the more you know, the more you can help. Now, did you know that there is 39.5% of buyers are receiving assistance through a down payment assistance program versus buyers that are receiving assistance from family members to purchase their home at 23.4%. So a lot of people are beginning to learn, and how they're learning about this through you, the realtor member. So let's move on. All right. Types of down payment assistance. Now, there is home, and before I go on to the next topic, we're going to talk about home ownership services. We're here on the slide right now, types of down payment assistance. Don't overlook our lenders. Sometimes our lenders have their own in-house down payment assistance program. Good. Now, home ownership services, employer assisted housing program. Please encourage your buyers to speak to their employer to see if they actually have an employer assisting housing program. That's another type. Second type, I just talked about it, lender home buyer programs. Sometimes the buyers might not qualify for a down payment assistance program through a nonprofit housing agency, but they could qualify through the bank's own home buyer program. So talk to the bank. Some of these banks out here have that. Okay, you might be saying, what banks, Natasha? I haven't heard of it. You have. Chase, we know, has one. Ridgewood Savings Bank does have one. We know that Quantic, and not just one, they have a couple of programs. So if they don't fit in one bucket, they can fit in another bucket. Let me tell you something. When it's time to go to closing, everybody's getting their funds wired in, or they're writing a check. At the end of the day, it goes into an account and it's all money. Nobody cares about the source. We just care that, you know what, that wire went through and it didn't bounce back. That check was received and there was not a bounce back, right? So we don't care where it come from. We just care that it's received. Good. Now, there's also down payment assistance program from the town, from the county, from the city. There's monthly first-time home buyer orientations, which is what we'll be focusing on the most, which is through nonprofit housing agencies. Now, let's get into it. Down payment assistance. We're going to be working with realtors. We will be working with down payment assistance programs through nonprofit housing agencies. Say that a couple of times over. Nonprofit housing agencies. And what do? They typically have HUD certified counselors. These HUD certified HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development, they have the counselors who have been trained to sit down with your buyer to walk them through the steps of home ownership. So what are you doing? Introducing your buyer to their power team. We all know that when you purchase a home, you're not doing this on your own. You're doing this with a lender. You're doing this with a realtor. You're doing this with an attorney. You're doing this with the appraiser. You're doing with a lot of people. Okay? All right. They will give them one-on-one pre-purchasing counseling. During this pre-purchasing counseling, they will look over their credit scores. They will tell them what areas they need to clean up a bit. Okay? They will sit them down and say, let's look at your savings or lack thereof. Let's put you on a program to get you to save. They will talk to them and check in with them and have them go through this counseling. And once they finish the actual program, then they'll receive a counseling certificate, and it's valid for 1 year. So that 1 year time frame, just like with a pre-approval, where the pre-approval might be 3 months, but this counseling certificate is for 1 year, it allows them to go out and shop for their home with you, their realtor. So guess what? You're no longer just leaving them in a drip campaign, if you will, or calling them once a year. You are now partnering with a counselor. You're partnering with a counselor, a HUD certified counselor that will walk them through the process of how to get from A to Z. Now that's good information. That's a true partnership. That's ensuring that citizens of this county, of this city, understands the steps necessary, and you are partnering with someone that will help them get to the finished line. Now, for those of you that have heard about down payment resources, you have also heard that they have to qualify, they have to be eligible. And yes, there are income limits. Now, with these income limits, it's per household size. So household size is the total number of individuals residing within that household, dependents, everyone. So a household size of 1, household, and I'm putting it up to 4, right? Typically, that's what we talk about, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're talking about AMI, area median income. AMIs, or area median income, is, we're not talking about the average, and you can tell by that we're not talking about the average because we said median income. So 50% of the highest income versus 50% of the lowest income, and it's a midpoint range. So it's a midpoint range of designated demographic area income. So if I'm looking at Westbury, then, or if I want to hone in further and look at Newcastle's section of Westbury, if I'm looking at Middle Island, if I'm looking at Mount Sinai, if I'm looking at Adelaide Park in Queens, if I'm looking at Canarsie, Brooklyn, we're going to the area and figuring, and we don't have to figure out because HUD has done all the work for us. They are looking at what the income is of that area to see and to share eligibility income requirements. Now, it's not for us to determine what that is. HUD determines what that will be. They are the ones responsible for this calculation. Now, where do they get all this data from? It's based on the American Community Survey, aka the census. All right. So they're basically looking at the census, looking at income levels, and then determining the calculation. And that's where we look at, and by the way, I have 80% AMI, 120% AMI, 130% AMI. There's AMI, area median income, as low as 30%, okay? Depending on where you are and depending on the program. But every program criteria will say, hey, we need to see 80% AMI. This is not for you to calculate. This is for you to be aware of what that number is. That's it. And HUD comes out with these numbers every single year. And these numbers are based on metropolitan and or non-metropolitan suburb areas, looking at the income based on the survey, the American Community Survey, the census, and that will determine what the income eligibility criteria is for each buyer. That's really important that you're aware of the AMI and what each program requires. I have 80% because typically programs are looking at 80% AMI. So a household of one, 86,200, a household of two, 98,500, household of three. And you understand the rest. Okay. Now, let's talk eligibility. Buyers must have a whopping $3,000 to $5,000 of their own funds. There's no way that they can walk into this and not have any funds, have zero funds. That's not what we're saying here. They were saying they must have some of their own funds. But I will say to you, 3,000 to 5,000 is not much. Now I can say that to you, you can say that to me, but every household is different. And that might be a lot to a household. And that's why we have down payment resources, okay? Because they too can realize the dream of home ownership. Talk time with Tosh. Talk time with Tosh. Let me just tell you, I've had a family, husband and wife, 2 kids, come to me. They already had their pre-approval, and I sat down with them, did a buyer's consultation. And in that buyer's consultation, I look at them holistically at all their expenses and whatever their pre-approval amount was. And I'll be honest with you, I said to them, based on what this dollar amount is and based on what that monthly mortgage is, based on your expenses, based on the fact that you have 2 kids, I don't agree with that amount. And for any lenders that are here, this is what I do. I work in partnership with you, but I'm being realistic to the buyer as well, because no one on my watch is going to have a foreclosed home, okay, because of affordability issues. Now, I do understand a lot of times buyers sit down and they talk to their lenders and they tell their lenders that this is what they can afford. But lenders are who they are. They will give them based on the facts, white and black, W-2s, and the numbers. I sat down with this particular buyer and I said, I understand you have a pre-approval for X amount of money, but did you really sit down and look at your own expenses and say that you can pay this monthly mortgage amount? Can you? And they said, it will be difficult. I said, but can we not, let's not let this be difficult. Can we make this a little bit more affordable, a little bit more comfortable? We don't want you to be robbing this part to pay this part. No, we should buy where we can afford. I sat down with them and I introduced down payment resources. And in doing so, they were able to qualify with a different type of mortgage, and they were able to put down $3,000, period, out of pocket. The rest was covered through their mortgage, quite honestly, that then had a down payment program applied to it. And then I was able to negotiate and their closing costs, and they walked away at the closing table with only putting $3,000. I'm living proof that it works, and it works well. And we just need to have an understanding of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it, and making sure that we are building communities, building families. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. We'll get back to the slides. So yes, it's possible to do it with $3,000. However, I typically do recommend all buyers to at least have $10,000 at least. I will tell you, that's what I recommend. Okay? Okay, good. We all know they need to have money, because by the time they go through the program and you work with them in finding a home, and you work with them getting an accepted offer, and you go through the inspection process, and they sit down with their attorney to sign contracts, we're in New York. And you need consideration, and consideration is money that they need to exchange with the attorney to make their contract binding. Is that yes or a yes? We all know that. So of course they need money. They need it upfront. They won't get everything from their down payment resource program, but it can help cover the gaps. Now, let's continue with eligibility. Adequate credit. They need to have adequate credit. You know, if there's late, if there's charge-offs, or there are collections, this is why they would have one-on-one counseling, because this one-on-one counseling will be their roadmap to their financial assets, to what's happening with them credit-wise, and get them credit ready. Get them credit ready. And that's why it's important that they have this one-on-one counseling. And by the time they walk away with their counseling certificate, they've already gone through the hurdles and the training and the necessary execution of repairing their credit. And yes, some of the programs might have even a lower credit score. Might. It depends. Now, you have to know, because they might ask, but is this happening for free? Well, there is a pre-purchasing counseling session with a HUD certified counselor. And yes, there is a nominal fee. No, I can't tell you what that fee is because it varies per housing provider. Okay? So, but there is a nominal fee. If they really ask what's the number, it could be somewhere around $99. But again, we don't know that information as realtors. It depends on the program that they get involved with. Okay. Now, I got to tell you this. Sometimes when you share this with people and you go through your database and you call someone and you find out, hey, I'm actually under contract, but you already started the conversation with, do you know about down payment resources? If they're under contract, you cannot help them. Let me repeat this again. If they're under contract, you cannot help them because you've learned that this will take some period of time going through one-on-one counseling, looking at their credit, building a program, an individualized program for them to qualify for the grant, down payment resource, AKA grants. They have to go through a process. So no, they can't find the house first and then come and look for the money later. It doesn't work that way. They have to go through the program first, get their certificate, then yes, they can go house hunting. They can go home shopping, but they cannot be under contract first. Now, let's have a little heart-to-heart on this eligibility. There is a residence requirement. There is a resident requirement. There is. It varies per program. I will tell you there's some programs that say if we give you a grant, you have to live in that home for 10 years. Some might say, I don't want it. I don't know what's going to happen. I might not be there for 10 years. Okay. And there's always a solution to what seemed like a problem. What happens here is, let's say you have to be there for 10 years, 5 years, and they have to sell or whatever the case might be. Next is, and every program is different, so I'm generalizing this. It's generalized, but then it'll be prorated based on the number of years they've lived in their home. So if they received a $20,000 grant per se, and they've lived there for 5 years, then you have to think 5 years has been then prorated off that grant. So they might owe $10,000. They might owe $5,000. Now you might be saying, oh my goodness, this is a grant and now they owe money. I thought this was free. It's free, but there are resident requirements. So let's say they do sell that property and let's say they do have a decent or a healthy appreciation, then it will be absorbed as one of the line item costs. When they're going through the trade and closing, it will be listed. Okay. Okay. Now, yes, the next thing, there is a purchase price maximum limit. No, we cannot be looking for the $10 million home. That's not what we're doing here. So there is going to be a purchase price maximum limit. And yes, this purchase price will also vary between an existing home or a new construction. Okay. These grants or down payment resources can be very area and town specific. Area and town specific. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And if you have not heard it, let me tell you now, because I'm here to tell you the truth. There could be a funding pause. That's my name. I made that up. A funding pause means that that particular grant maker could decide that they're putting a pause on that program. Now, you might be like, how could this happen? Let's talk. Funding pause. Let's make eye-to-eye contact, if you will. A funding pause could happen. It could be that it's run on a fiscal year that's not a calendar year, and the grant maker might have run out of money for that fiscal year. It could happen. It happened to me with my buyer getting a down payment resource. And what did we do? We held on for dear life. Meaning that grant maker did get the funds back in, but there was a pause for a period of time. It could mean that everybody, and I'm going to tell you this as well, there's a lot of times people don't really look for a house during the winter. They're more of the seasonal summer and spring. Like anything, summer and spring, everyone is shopping. for a home. And guess what? That means there's more people applying to that down payment resources pot. So there is a likelihood that all those money can be exhausted. It's a possibility. Hence why I said they should have money. They should. But if they don't, it's okay. You would then communicate with the nonprofit housing agency as to what other programs could they apply for. In my situation, in an instance where this happened to me, we stayed within the same program. We explained to the seller what was happening. The seller knew upfront that we're using down payment resources, by the way, so there was no surprise there. We all were surprised when there was a funding pause. However, we communicated to the seller, we communicated with the nonprofit housing agency, and 2 weeks later, the funds opened up again. Okay, so there are solutions, but I want you to be aware that this could happen because this is what you will also explain to your buyer. So while they're going through this program, if you will, that they will actively save money. When they find the home, they will actively save money. We say this to all our buyers, whether they're entry-level buyers or not. Continue to save until you go to closing. Keep saving your money. Okay, so let's go back. Now, this one-on-one pre-purchase counseling, I kind of talked about it, but let's do a little bit more of a deep dive. Review. They will sit down with your buyer and review their assets, liabilities. They will review their W-2s, their tax returns. You might be saying they sound like a lender. They work very closely with lenders. They might even recommend 3 lenders to your buyer. Okay? You have a true partner with a nonprofit housing agency. Second, they will come up with assessing the affordability. They will say, hey, well, this is what you look like you can afford based on your numbers, on your credit score. They might say, hey, not right now. You need another 6 months. And in this 6 months, this is your defined action plan. Third step, defined action plan. In 6 months, the expectation is that you will do X, Y, and Z. Okay. And then last of all, they give them this power team. I mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. You know, us as realtors, we're asked a lot of time for resources, And we know that we typically will give 3 resources per category. We'll recommend at least 3 attorneys. We could recommend at least 3 lenders. We can recommend at least 3 home inspectors and allow the buyer to interview each person in that category, each firm in that category, and make their choice. And here with down payment resources, you just double that because the counselor will also recommend a lender. The counselor will also recommend a home inspector. A counselor will also recommend an attorney. Why? Because this is a down payment resource grant and it will require different steps to receive that resource. Make sense? Is this good or good? Now, let's meet the housing agencies. I've been talking about the nonprofit housing agencies. Now let's meet them. All right. Let's start off with the 5 boroughs. First, we start off with the Bronx. The Bronx has the Bronx NHS CDC. What languages do they speak there? Because we know realtors that we speak to various demographics and we are very sensitive to their needs. And we want to ensure that our buyers are comfortable in speaking in their own language about such a matter as this regarding their finances. Okay. And okay. So the Bronx, you would go to the Bronx NHS CDC. Languages spoken there, English and Spanish. Now, I know, Staten Island, sometimes they call you the forgotten borough, but I did not forget you, Staten Island. All right, so Staten Island, if you're here, you have the Neighborhoods for a Sustainable Future, NASF, and you have Northfield Community Local Development Corporation. I want to put a pause here and say, let's say you're talking to someone and they are currently renting in the Bronx, but they decided they want to go to Staten Island. Here you are saying, hey, you're not limited. Oh, well, you're here in the Bronx. I can't have you communicate with the Bronx NHS. Now, what do I do? Here you go. They want to buy in Staten Island. Here are resources for Staten Island. Okay, so wherever their money take them, wherever their credit take them, wherever their pre-approval takes them, wherever the market is saying, we know right now we're dealing with what people are considering skyrocketing interest rates, but we know we lived at times where interest rates were double digits. They're not that now. You know, people are saying that there is, which is true, the fact that there's limited inventory. It's happening, but we can offer hope. And this is a way in which you can do so. And I keep saying that over and over because it's very central to what I'm talking about today, that we as realtors offer hope. We as realtors share with the community resources that they do not know about. We, the realtors, are experts in our field. We do this day in, day out, and some of us even have dreams about it, or maybe nightmares. And so it's important that we give as much as possible, okay? Now, Brooklyn will not be outdone. They don't have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, but they have six housing agencies. We have the Brooklyn Neighborhood Services. We have Grow Brooklyn, Impact Brooklyn. And then we have MHANY Management, Inc. We have Neighborhood Helping Neighbors and NHS of Brooklyn. Okay, the predominantly all the languages there will be English and Spanish. Okay, good. Wait a minute. Were you saying, what was that? You wanted a screenshot? Okay, no problem. For the Bronx and Staten Island, screenshot. Good or good? Okay. Now, Brooklyn, did you say screenshot? By all means. A little jealous of the paparazzi that is not of me, but it's of the screen, but it's okay. Next, Manhattan. Manhattan say, okay, we'll be a close second to you, Brooklyn. We have 5 housing agencies: Abyssinian Development Corp., Asian American for Equality. And this is the thing that I love about down payment resources, about the housing agencies. We're talking to all demographics. Wait a minute, it's inclusive. Okay. We have Harlem Congregations for Community Improvement. We have Housing Partnership Development Corp. and NHS of NYC Home Ownership Center. Okay. Screenshot. Got it? Good? Great. Queens. Queens said, you know what? Brooklyn, you might have 6. Manhattan, I equal you at 5. We are in second place. Now we know that Queens is the melting pot. It's the most diverse, right? Right. So Queens will not be outdone. We have the Asian Americans for Equality. We have Chaya CDC, Margaret Community Corp., NHS of Jamaica, and NHS of Queens CDC. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Hope you got your screenshot. Next. Now we come to Long Island. And here in Long Island, we have the Community Development Corp of Long Island, serving both Nassau and Suffolk. We have CHI, or the Community Housing Innovations, here serving Nassau, Suffolk, and Westchester. For those of you from the Westchester market, there you go. You're welcome. And then you have LIHP, which is the Long Island Housing Partnership for both Nassau and Suffolk. I want to go back for a moment. LIHP, it says partnership in their name, and I'm going to speak about them. I've dealt actually with all of these housing agencies. I will, however, shine a quick spotlight on LIHP. Partnership is truly in their name, and partnership is truly what they offer. So for those of you on the island, LIHP is a great resource. They're a great resource to us, the realtors. They're a great resource to the community. And they also have these wonderful in-person first-time home buyer workshops, one of them coming up soon in April in Baldwin. Okay, this is a term I know I made up. If you hear anybody else saying it, they took it from me, and it's okay. I like to share. Grant stacking. Okay, what does grant stacking mean? Okay, first of all, you know, down payment resources, AKA grants. And now, you know, we talk about tech stacking. Now let's talk about grant stacking. So your buyers, I might have hinted at this before when I talked about One Key MLS. And in that example in Adelaide Park, I showed that property, if you go to, you know, look up property in One Key MLS, it will show you this green sign with the $sign. And once you click that link, it takes you to another benefit showing you how many programs that particular property in that area based on the AMI. And we all learned area median income, right? Right. They could qualify for it. Yes. And it said 17. And that was just me doing something live so you can see that this really works. Okay, so 17 programs. So that means there is the possibility of grant stacking, layering one grant on the other like a sandwich. Now, there's various grants that we can layer. There's agency grants, which is the housing agencies. There's Sony Mae. Sony Mae. Now, Sony Mae is our mortgage. You know, we typically talk about FHA conventional. Sony Mae is our state of New York mortgage. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful program. The example I gave you before, where my buyer put down $3,000, we use a Sony Mae. We use a Sony Mae product. We sure did. It was great. And then I told you about lender programs. The banks have their own in-house programs as well. So we can grant stack a grant and maybe even rehab funds. Let's talk about it. However, we have to recognize that sources cannot be the same, okay? Now, what are some of the programs out there, Natasha? I'm here. We're talking about it. Give me a moment. We have the Home First Down Payment Assistance Program. Now, you might have heard in my bio that I've been doing this for over 10 years, working with the down payment resource programs. Now, before, it used to be $40,000. Now it's a whopping $100,000, as it should be, because we know that prices have increased in the 5 boroughs. I mean, everywhere in New York, honestly. But nevertheless, it used to be a $40,000 down payment grant. Now it's up to $100,000. If that's not the lottery, I don't know what it is. And it covers down payment, and it could also cover closing costs. But still, your buyer must have some money saved. Okay, it's good towards multifamily, single family, condos, and co-ops. And yes, I said it already, at least 1% of the buyer's own funds is necessary, and that home must pass a housing inspection. Because if they're giving you a grant, they want to ensure that if their work needs to be done on that house, that it passes their inspection. Okay, good. Now, Nassau, Suffolk, you will not be left out. Of course not, because we are inclusive over here. Natasha, middle name, Affordable Housing Williams, will give you all the tea. I hope you're drinking that tea and sipping on it because it is piping hot to you today. Now, Nassau County, they have what's called a Home Down Payment Assistance Program, $25,000 grant. There is a price limit, and it's administered through Long Island Housing Partnership, LIHP. I did tell you take note, didn't I? Okay, take note. Now, there is Suffolk County, the Home Down Payment Assistance Program. It's up to $30,000. Okay, Suffolk, we see you. And thank you. It's a $30,000 grant, but this is only towards down payment, wherein the Nassau County Home Down Payment Assistance was for both down payment and closing costs. Suffolk said, I'll give you 30, but that's towards your down payment. They're essentially lowering the amount that you're putting for the house, lowering the price of the house, okay? Yes, there's a purchase price limit here. Yes, it is town specific, and it's administered through the Suffolk County Office of Community Development. Remember a couple of slides earlier, I said to you that there's lots of grants depending on where it comes from. Town, it can come from the city, it can come from county, private institutions, national. There's a lot of resources. Okay, let's get into the towns. Town of Brookhaven, TOB, their Home Down Payment Assistance Program, up to $39,000 grant towards both payment, down payment, and closing. And did you see that? Grant stacking. That's right. You can stack this grant. Okay. And it's administered via LIHP. Going on to the Town of Babylon, another TOB, Home Down Payment Assistance Program, up to $39,000. Okay. Again, administered via LIHP. Now for LIHP. And I got this right here on the side. I have this right here on the side. Grant stacking, Community Stabilization Program. So listen, this is really good. I told you it wasn't only for low income. It's also for middle income. I like to think of this program, the CSP program, as Helping a first-time home buyer also act as an investor. You're like, wait, what? What do you mean? Are you drinking this tea I'm serving? Because it is piping hot. Okay, so this is up to $30,000 if someone was to buy that home in your neighborhood that is a foreclosure, is blighted, is a distressed property, and everyone said, oh, that's too much work. I don't want to buy that house. This program, the Community Stabilization Program, CSP, through LIHP, Long Island Housing Partnership, will give you up to $30,000 to rehab that home. Now, some of you might be saying $30,000 is not enough to rehab an entire home. Be grateful. Okay, this is the land of the free and the brave, that they're giving you money to rehab a property that they don't have to do. So it can be that you use these funds, and it's maybe the house that you're looking at, you're not going to look for something that is falling apart and has no foundation. Okay, you're going to look for a home that say, you know what, we got to replace some of the walls here, maybe upgrade a little bit of the plumbing, maybe we have to change some of the work done in the kitchen. Okay, up to $30,000 is not bad. Plus, it's grant stacking, which means it can go with other programs. Okay. Now let's talk about the creme de la creme. And I got 8 minutes. I can't believe where the time is gone. I told you we can talk this all day, every day, at least 3 hours straight. But let's get to it. Sony Mae loans, love them all day long. Why? They have 3 that we can talk about. Achieving the dream. There's no points. There's as low as 3% down payment. And the minimum cash contribution is just 1%. I told you the story. My buyers, they only put $3,000 down. Okay. And it's a grant stacker. You can just have grants on top of grants on top of grants. Second, neighborhood revitalization program. Qualify for a Sony Mae Achieving the Dream program, that loan that we just talked about, plus up to $20,000 to renovate. Next, we have the down payment assistance loan. Wait a minute. So are you saying, Natasha, down payment assistance loan mean that they might not have money for their down payment? Yes. And instead, they give them a loan for their down payment with 0% interest rate up to $15,000. And guess what? It's forgiven after 10 years. Okay. And now let's get into the last portion, free members benefit alert. I talked about One Key earlier, and let me talk about One Key now. In One Key is embedded as a free benefit to us, down payment resources. Are you see the arrows coming in? Do you see the green and black arrows in our One Key MLS showing you down payment resources? Embedded in our MLS, we can learn about resources available. Oh my goodness, let's just pretend I did this live. I touched down payment resources. Next, we go to this page. Welcome to down payment resource. While we are here, did you know that you can have a free down payment lead gen page on your website? And for social media? You're welcome. No, I'm done. I'm done. You're welcome. This right here, if you stay to the end, you got the best of the best of creme de la creme, and you're welcome. This page will tell you about down payment resources pricing tool. This will give you your own page on your website. And of course I use that resource. It only makes sense. Let me tell you where we are now with down payment resources versus where we were in the past. This is a game changer. I literally had to go and learn all this information myself in order and partner with a number of agencies to get the information that you can sit down in your seat and go into One Key MLS and find out on your own in a matter of seconds. Game changer. And the DPR pricing tool. Oh my goodness. What are we doing? It's literally going in street by street, put in the address. And it will and you will see on the other side where it says matched programs, it will tell you how many programs it matches for that property. That's beyond. Before, I used to sit down with my lender, we would go through this government website, we would put in the address, and we would have a big map that would come forth, and then we would have to drill down. I tell you, life is good and life is easy. This is a wonderful tool. And I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop here and ask, are there any questions? But while we're here, I want to say something to you. I want to show you something. I just showed you one of our benefits, right? Let me take you to this benefit just very quickly in the last 5 minutes that we have. And I'm going to show you my website. I'm going to show you how easy this thing is, how easy it has become, how easy it is to talk to others about down payment resources, how easy it is to share down payment resources with them, how easy it is to be an evangelist for your community, talking about wearing the banner proud of the fact that we as realtors can offer them great resources. Look at this. This is my website. What do you see here? Down payment assistance. What do you see here? Money is available. Now listen, I am not tech savvy. You know, I had to give this out to someone else to add to my website. But the fact is, it's already built, and all I had to do was slap it on my website. Now people come here and say, oh, well, wow, this realtor must know a thing or two about down payment assistance. I do. But one key made it easier for you and I. So now I am more than happy to take questions. I hope you enjoyed what you received thus far. There's a lot more to offer. There's a lot more to share, but we're talking about our housing agencies. That was the focus today, so that you learn that you have a partner out there that can help you help the community. Any questions, anyone?
We're just getting a ton of great feedback in the chat. People are saying this was fantastic and they're thanking you. Some folks are looking for the Brooklyn and Manhattan slide again, if you would be so kind as to go back into your presentation, but also please keep in mind, folks, within a few hours, this presentation will be available at lirealtor.com/webinars. And then I have someone just saying income requirement. I don't know if you want to speak to that
Okay,
while we look.
So here's the thing with income requirements. Every grant, every down payment resource program is different. So I don't want to speak to it heavily. And because you asked, I will say this. I'm going to go back to this slide. Income limits. Maybe this is what you're referring to. Maybe you want me to show you this. But this is talking about the household size. And this is talking about what the amount of income they should have or what the area should have. This is where you sit down with the lender. It's very important. I'm sharing this information with you, but I need for you not to share the income limits per se with your buyer. I'm sharing this with you so that you have knowledge of what's expected. However, it's even easier if you use the one key benefit, the down payment resource. It will give you a deep dive if you really want that and you want to get a PhD like me in down payment resources, then you can go there and find more information as well. Now, I believe we asked for Brooklyn. Here's Brooklyn.
Brooklyn and Manhattan.
Of course, Manhattan. And Manhattan. A little jealous of the paparazzi and the love that the slide is getting. I'm here. I can do the paparazzi as well. But the important information is right before you for Manhattan. And yes, I'll go back to Brooklyn and give it a little bit of time here. And I'm going to go back to the Bronx, Staten Island, and then next I'll go to Queens.
Thank you for including Staten Island. You know, I'm a Staten Island resident many moons ago, and they always forget about us. So it's nice to see us on the list.
Come on, it's not the forgotten borough over here.
But now, you know, riding hard for Long Island, of course. So
yes. Oh, definitely.
Everyone is saying thank you so much for the great information. Folks, we have just about 1 minute left. If there's any last minute thoughts, ideas that you would like to share. But seeing none, I think we are about ready to conclude. Natasha, thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful session. It was so informative. I learned so much. I'm sure all of our members who joined us today learned so much, and we're looking forward to more great information in the future. And again, lirealtor.com/webinars for the replay of this webinar and all of our webinar catalog dating back to 2020. All right, everyone, have a great day. Have a good one. Enjoy.